Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mr. Tony Tackaberry. Hi,
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming, Tony.
Delighted to be here.
And then, is that like a Queens accent or a Brooklyn accent or Staten Island?
Jersey.
Jersey, it's a Jersey accent.
Obviously.
South Jersey. But you're from across the pond. You're from England somewhere?
Yep. Born in Bristol.
Oh.
Bristol, West Country. But spent very little time there and spent the rest of my time in North London.
Oh, wow.
North Londoner.
Where in North London?
It's a place called Kentish Town.
Uh-huh.
It's an odd place.
Is it on the Northern Line?
It is on the Northern Line. My God.
Did I win at something?
I love you, Norman.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It is on the Northern Line. It is sandwiched by some of the fanciest neighbourhoods in North London.
Right.
So it's right in the middle of Highgate, Hampstead, Belsize Park, Islington, even Camden's a little fancier. And it's decidedly unfancy, or at least it has been for many years. And it was always called this, up and coming Kentish town.
Uh-huh.
Except that unfortunately it never up and came. It's never quite got there.
Still? And are your folks still there?
My dad's still there. Same house, yeah.
Now, Kentish, does it mean it was like sort of like Kent? Like kind of they couldn't quite commit?
It couldn't be less like Kent at the moment. But sure, let's go with yes. Yeah.
But,
I honestly don't know where it comes from. Yeah, the name.
Right. But that's a nice neighborhood up that way. Why would Kentish Town still be resisting the spit shine, the polish?
It's a really good question. And we ask ourselves this on a fairly regular basis. The sort of percentage of the population that have a limp or have, some kind of, I don't mean to make fun of, I should probably be careful here, but it's just, I don't know, it's a place that hasn't had the opportunities and the luck of the surrounding area. It's poorer, definitely. There's a big Irish population. There used to be a big Irish population in Kentish Town. Working class Irish people. But that doesn't really explain it. It's a mystery. Honestly, it's a mystery.
Huh. Was it a nice place to grow up? Was it rough?
It was a little rough. Yeah, it was a little rough. Again, particularly in comparison to the neighboring sort of boroughs or areas.
Right.
It was called. I just remembered. It was known as Stab City.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
where I was brought up.
That's not very cute.
It's not cute.
Stab City.
Yeah.
And did you ever see people, brandishing knives?
No, not a knife. No, I got beaten up a couple of times.
Uh-huh.
But I was also being a bit of a dick myself, I think. So it was probably deserved.
Okay, we're just going to talk about this for the rest of the hour. How were you a dick at age 15, say?
I remember this one occasion on our road, these two manifestly bigger guys. I was with a mate, a guy who lived next door. And they were walking. It was ridiculous. They were just walking down the road and we started shouting at them. I can't even remember what we said, but it was rude and unnecessary. And they were bigger than us.
So pick and fight with a much bigger.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah.
Dick-like behavior.
Yeah.
And
what did I say? Fool around and find out.
And so they go round the corner of our road. I remember this to this day. And we think, aren't we big and clever? And we sort of run down to the end or jog down to the end of the road to see them wandering around. And we get to the end of the road and they were hiding round the corner. And they came back and pinned me to the door and beat me up.
Wow.
I think I deserved it.
Like closed fist
Closed
punches.
fist. Not many. 2 or 3. Yeah.
And did they knock you guys down?
No, I cried. Pretty sure I cried.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
But let me
I went running back to my mother, who had zero sympathy.
Because she knew.
She knew.
She's like, I told you you're going to get beaten up one day.
Exactly. You keep opening your big mouth.
I love the unsympathetic mother.
Yeah.
Who does that. So when you say you cried, was it physical pain, or was it the sense of violation?
Very good question, because I don't think it was that painful. I
Right.
mean, it was a little painful. It was the shock. It
Right.
was the shock and the fear, I think.
Right. And, and that your bubble had been pierced, and bad things could now, it happened once, it could happen again, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've realized now, right at this moment, that I think I've been living with this for a long time.
Yeah. Do you want a hug?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, those little things from our youth, they can be so damn traumatic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it was that traumatic in the end, but it's a learning experience. As you say, fuck around and find out.
Right. Yeah. And so you said you were beaten up a couple of times. Do you recollect the other time?
Well,
or?
funnily enough, the other time actually wasn't in other times, and they weren't as beaten up is a little bit of an exaggeration. But so I went to a private school in Highgate. You'll know Highgate.
And did you have a uniform?
I had uniform.
Right.
I wore
Public
shorts,
schoolboy uniform.
Public schoolboy uniform, the
Right.
whole thing, and that doesn't go down well with various populations in North
Some
London.
of the
or anywhere.
populations in Stab City.
Exactly. But this happened actually at the school. It was on the top of the hill in Highgate. Highgate's this lovely neighbourhood on a hill, sort of overlooking the whole of London. It's fantastic. And the school's at the top of it. And I and many other kids had to walk down the hill to the tube station, Highgate tube station, to go home. And it was a bit of a battle zone, to be honest. And I never got into any physical violence, but we were threatened and intimidated fairly constantly.
Right.
But again, we were wearing silly Ponzi uniforms.
And the public school boy in their short pants and stuff is sort of a cliche. Did you have a jacket with beaded trim on it?
Blazer, purple jacket.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that was school colors, purple.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
big targets.
yeah. And at what point did you switch from short trousers to long trousers?
I think, that's a good question. I think senior school, which I guess is high school.
Like what age? Like 14, 15?
14, 15, something like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, I was very relieved about that. It's also really cold.
Right. You were relieved because the shorts were like a
Yeah.
kick me sign.
Yeah. And also we had a little more freedom not to wear the blazer.
And how was the education in this school?
I've heard it was good.
So studying was not really your
Not
jam.
my thing. No. 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 I had a great time at school because I didn't really spend much of it working. I used to go out and have a really great time with my friends.
And doing what? Picking fights
Drinking.
with big guys?
No.
So drinking, were there pubs near you that would serve underage?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
So like you're 14, you've got a pound. And
14 was, some of us could get away with it, but 15 and up,
and
no problem.
And they wouldn't ask. And
Hampstead and Highgate. I've just bumped into someone by IXL, an English bloke, same age as me, who had exactly the same upbringing in Hampstead and Highgate, going to the pubs of Hampstead and Highgate, and just having they're two of the nicest neighborhoods in London, and they're your stomping ground as a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kid. I was very lucky.
right.
Failed everything, but was very lucky.
But you graduated on time.
Technically, yes.
Technically,
Yeah.
You sweet talked your one professor.
I'm wondering whether there was a scenario where I wouldn't graduate. I guess if I failed, I don't know. I got through the whole time.
And what did your parents think about this? They're spending all this money to send you this, fancy school.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it makes me sound ungrateful and impertinent. But I
That's going to be my next show's title.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ungrateful and impertinent. It was a great lesson I've learned from my dad is that my mum was pretty strict, but also was not a great student. She was an actress and then a literary agent, and as I say, you're not a great student at all. Left school pretty early, I think. My dad, quite the opposite. went to Cambridge. So in theory, he had potentially a bit of an axe to grind, but he was great. He had his sort of boundaries that if you crossed, you knew about it. But he also was a great believer in you make your own mistakes and you learn from it.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
What's worked out all right for you, I
Yeah,
guess.
it has. It has.
Did I ask you if you have siblings?
I have a brother.
Okay. And did it work out all right for him?
Yeah, he was a very good student.
Okay.
Completely. He was the prefect, almost head of school.
I see.
Yeah.
So how did your dad get from Cambridge to Bristol? Isn't that where you said you moved to?
I mean, I can tell you. It's
Yeah.
a bit of a story.
Yeah,
So
sure.
he actually did his degree, his bachelor's in Cambridge. Then he did a master's in Dublin at Trinity.
In what kind of studies?
Economics,
Okay.
I want to say. Then he tried to become an actor.
Okay.
Met my mum at Mount View Theatre School in London.
Okay.
I think this is right. They got married. My mother would have been 17, 18. My dad 25. She got a gig working at the Bristol Old Vic,
Okay.
and the family moved to Bristol.
Okay.
And my dad commuted to London. I was born whilst they were there.
Your dad was commuting to London.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Huh.
So he was doing either the bar exam or he was a pupil in a barrister's chambers.
Right. And then did he end up being a
Yes.
lawyer? What are they called? Counselor,
He's a
barrister?
he's a barrister, and to toot his horn on his I don't know what
That's
I'm
a
saying.
better. That's good. It's a family show.
Yeah.
But no, not a family.
Yeah,
I take it all
understood,
back.
understood.
Anyway, yeah.
Yes, he is now a KC, which is King's Counsel. He was a Queen's Counsel when there was a Queen,
Okay.
which is just a fancy lawyer, fancy barrister.
And does he enjoy that?
Loves it. 85, still goes into chambers every day. Not every day, but
So sweet.
yeah.
And so, why did they decide to move from Bristol to London?
Back to London. It was
Yeah.
because my mother was an actress and an aspiring actress, so I think she went and studied at the Old Vic, same time as some pretty famous actors and actresses, and then that moment passed, I guess, and I think it probably coincided with my dad becoming sort of graduating from being a pupil to an actual lawyer, and so they moved
Right.
back to London. Bought a house for 500 quid.
And was your mom able to keep acting and raise the kids?
She stopped because partly because of us, and partly because she had horrible stage fright.
Oh,
Yeah,
an interesting thing to have as an
Yeah.
actor.
yeah.
Did you ever get to see her acting in anything?
Nothing like no. I mean, actually, that's probably not true. When I was very little, I probably did, but I have no recollection of that.
Right.
But she's had a couple of small roles in the old movie, and I have seen that, and it's fantastic. She's in do you know Hammer House of Horror?
No.
Classic horror studio in the UK, like the classic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that does sound
You
familiar.
probably have.
Right.
I mean, it was
Peter Cushing.
100%.
These
Yeah,
kinds of people.
all of that.
Right.
And she had a bit part as a nurse at the end of one of those films where her job was just to scream her head off, which she did spectacularly well. Ended the film.
Did she ever scream at the boys?
Oh yeah,
You and your brother?
she was. Yeah.
And what kinds of transgressions were likely to set your mom off?
I mean, fidgeting.
Fidgeting.
Keep still. I have an abiding memory of my mother
Isn't
telling
that
me
funny?
to keep still.
Yeah, my mom gave me a hard time about that all the time.
Yeah.
She called me a fuss budget.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
I don't know what it means, but
No.
yeah. Yeah, no, I got that. Literally, it's possibly the thing I remember most about my mother. That's not true. I remember wonderful things, but yeah. I mean, very annoyingly middle class in the British sense kind of things, like table manners,
Right.
being polite. But she was one of the funniest women I've you could imagine. She had an amazing laugh and was hysterically funny.
That's so good. So I'm kind of guessing, family meals were,
Amazing.
emphasis on politeness and, all that stuff, but also on laughter.
The politeness went by the wayside after the first few bottles of wine.
Oh, nice.
I feel I say that, I didn't go to college, so I left school and went straight into the TV business for what I do. And I often say that I was educated at my mother and father's, and then they separated. It was just my dad's sort of dining room table, because he would just have these amazing, huge, completely out of control in terms of numbers, lunches and dinners, and he'd invite people just constantly. And it was the same with my mum. She would do the same thing, and it was.
And did they both prepare the food?
Yeah. To begin with, it was mainly my mother,
Uh-huh.
and then when they separated, they would do it themselves. Yeah, my dad still to this day. My 20-year-old son was in London 2 weeks ago, and he put on a Sunday lunch just for him with 20 people. He's 85, and he
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
So if you could have any dish that was a characteristic of your dad's cooking, and then second question, of your mom's cooking, what would you have to materialize right here in front of you right now?
The list for my dad's cooking, love him though I do, is not long.
Okay.
He does a very mean roast pork
Uh-huh.
as a sort of Sunday roast.
Yeah.
I would avoid his soups. And then my mother, she was a brilliant cook. I'm trying to think. Do you know what? This is a crazy thing. Chicken livers.
She what?
Chicken livers.
Oh.
And the smell of I think it may just be the onions. I'm not a great cook in any way. But
Right.
I just have that memory of the smell of her cooking chicken livers as one of the sort of loveliest, most, evocative smells.
Right. And do you cook?
Not well, and not as often as I should, but I'm doing much better.
Oh. Have you learned any fresh recipes lately?
I'm not. No. I'm a good no. Okay, so the bar's quite low. Let's just be honest.
Very good.
I'm not a great cook. Didn't do much cooking. My wife Emma, who you've had on the show, is a phenomenal cook. Brought up in a restaurant, cooks, loves to cook, and I didn't and don't. But in the pandemic, actually, I started to cook a bit more, and now I'm just not very experimental. I just can cook decent meat and 2 veg type meals,
Right.
and a salad, invariably a Greek salad.
Oh, 2 veg. That's fancy.
So I made bolognese. I'm trying.
Right.
I'm developing.
That's great.
Give me a chance, I'll get there.
Sure. I'm not keeping track. So you said you left high school and went straight into the TV business.
I did, yeah.
And what kind of opportunities were available to a 17 or 18-year-old poor student?
Poor student. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, a poor student that had one thing which was sort of not terrible interpersonal skills.
Talking your way out of
jams
with the neighborhood bullies.
The neighborhood bullies, exactly. So it was called a runner. I think in America you call it a PA, but it's the lowest on the totem pole of the production sort of hierarchy, and it arguably was the greatest job I've ever had, because you get to do a little bit of everything and help and work with everyone, from the sound mixer to the online editor to film editors to producers, right? Everything, because you're running back and forth, helping them with this, that, and the other, all sorts of things. And it was phenomenal.
So you're not just delivering memos or envelopes or
Doing a fair amount of that.
film.
But I was working, I mean, you'll relate to this. I was working, the company at first place I went to was in Fitzroy Square. And that was the next 15 years of my professional life was in the 3-mile radius of that area. So
Right.
It was Soho. It was the heart of the film business.
Right.
I was delivering film canisters to labs and this, that, and the other. And I mean, as a kid who just loved film and TV, I just was so happy.
And what was the name of the company you worked with?
It was called Hawk's Head.
Uh-huh.
It was a small independent production company that made mainly factual TV.
Mainly factual TV?
Factual.
Uh-huh.
They did a big, I'm trying to remember what it was called, big China series about China, which in the time, fucking 80s, was pretty groundbreaking. But it's all, factual, non-fiction, documentaries.
Uh-huh. And how long did you stay there?
I was there for quite a while because they then got bought by another company, which I stayed. So I don't know, 10 years, one way or another. And I sort of somehow worked my way up. I wasn't a runner for 10 years.
That's good.
That would have been sad.
And what did you work your way up to?
There, I think just a producer. I think, or even a series producer. So I was overseeing a series we did. Actually, where I met my wife was a series called Metroland, which was a wonderful series for first-time documentary directors. And I sort of was why I was given this role, I'm not entirely sure. I had very little experience, but somehow I was given the role of overseeing and helping these directors fulfill their visions. It was called Metroland. It was great. It was it's just a wonderful series.
It must have been kind of thrilling to have them trust you with this new job.
Thrilling and a little terrifying because I didn't really know what I was doing. But yeah, it was fantastic. We had such a blast, and it was so many different filmmakers, such different perspectives. Variety is something that's defined my career. I've done the whole range almost of non-fiction TV content or content, and that series kind of epitomized that. I mean, I didn't choose the variety, I just loved it.
Huh. And so once you left that company, it sounds like you had a great time there. Did another opportunity sort of fall in your lap that was too good to pass up?
I'm trying to remember why I left. The short answer is maybe I got one job. I think that's what it was. I got another job somewhere else as a series producer, but then, had a little bit of a tough time. And then I was a jobbing producer on non-fiction for the next 10 years, basically.
Okay.
Or 5, 6 years.
And what were some of the highlights of that decade?
Some of the highlights of that decade were making a documentary about British arts overseas and hearing Margaret Thatcher tell the rudest joke about Germans I think I've ever heard.
Oh.
And before you say, I can't remember it. I've spent the last 35, 40 years trying to remember
All right, well, you can redeem yourself by telling another rude joke.
I'm not good at jokes. I can't remember jokes.
Fine.
Sorry. Wait, did you mean like from a career point of view or just incidents? Because I was just going to go with incidents. Because I also got
whatever you want to go with.
Hit. Because it's continuing the thing with
Yeah.
me being a punch bag. I got hit by the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Dennis Healy.
It's like the Secretary of the Treasury.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He punched me.
For what?
I don't know. To this day, I was making a gardening show, if you can believe this, and it was in the southeast of England. And what we would do is we would go to, it would be a regular gardening show. We would show people how to make hanging baskets or whatever, and then there would be one segment where we would go and find someone famous or notable and film and notable that had a nice garden, and we film with them and they'd tell us about their garden. And Dennis Healy agreed to do it, and we arrive at 6:30 in the morning. Film day. It starts early, 6:30, 7 o'clock, and we are ushered into the conservatory where he's sitting with a whiskey at 7 o'clock in the morning. No judgment, whatever. And at this point, he's sort of, his career's on the other side of its peak, and it's sort of on the way down. But still, it's Dennis Healy. He's a legend.
Right.
And so we have a chat. We plan. We're going to do some filming first, and then we'll do an interview with him. And I think we took a little longer, as film crews always do, than we should. And we're filming around. He's got this beautiful property on the southeast coast, overlooking the sea. It's stunning. And we're doing some filming and getting a bit carried away. And then I see him sort of marching up the hill towards us, and he's really angry with me because I'm the sort of broker of this whole thing. And he punches me in the arm. You told me you were going to be, and I was late. Got smacked by the Chancellor of East Jacket.
You went late? Was that it?
Well,
He
said. I think we said that we were going to be back at his house for an interview at
Oh, I see.
10:30.
Right.
And it was 10:40. I mean, we were not horribly late. It was like 10:40. We were fine.
But he let you finish the film day.
He did. He did.
That's good.
Yeah.
And where was he? He was somewhere down south near the coast?
I think it was Sussex. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I forget exactly where, but yeah.
Right. Well, that's a highlight, getting
Yeah, it was.
slugged by a high-level government official.
I wear it with a badge of pride, no question.
Evidently. And so you left there at some point to pursue other projects.
Yeah, so I did a bunch of jobbing. I left there, did some jobbing work, and then found myself...
What is jobbing, like freelance stuff?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, again, one of the shows was She's Gotta Have It, which was a fashion show. Lifestyle, a lot of lifestyle stuff. I made a film about a footballing idol of mine, which was, wonderful. And then I was making another show called To Catch a Thief,
Okay.
which was a home security makeover show where we find people who have security weaknesses in their home, and we show them the security weaknesses by getting two ex-burglars to break in whilst they watch live on camera in a van outside their own house.
So the homeowners are in on this.
They are. But we break into their house.
Well, that's fine.
Kind of. But we... So I was in the middle of making that show, and I got a call saying, do you want any interest in going to New York for 6 months? And that was in 2002.
And who was inviting you to New York?
So I was working for a company. It was called Lion Television. That's who I was making the To Catch a Thief show for. And one of the founders, a guy called Nick Catliff. In fact, what actually happened, I'll tell you, was I was working, my executive producer was a guy called Jeremy Mills. He was one of the founders. And we were finishing up the show, the Thief show, and he called me in the edit suite, or in the edit bay, and he said, do you fancy going to New York for 6 months? I was like, sure. What for? And he told me about the show, and it was a history show for PBS. And I said, yeah, sounds interesting. When? Next week. I was like, oh, sure, maybe, actually. Emma and I, we wanted to travel. We were together at that point. Hang up. I say I think about it and hang up. 3 minutes later, phone rings again, and it's one of the other founders who I'd never met before, a guy called Nick Catliff. And he said, Tony, do you have any interest in going to New York? And he made the same spiel in the same pitch. I was like, Jeremy just called me. What? And do
you guys have a script?
Well, no, they had oversold so much. They were desperate. They
Right.
needed a warm body out in New York ASAP.
And did you have the presence of mind to realize all of that at the moment? Like, wow, they're really overselling this.
No, I
And
thought
each
they
of them
really
called-
liked me.
Well, same thing. So did you have the presence of mind at that point to think they really like me, they really want me? I'm going to ask for double.
No. Well, kind of. I didn't ask for double. I asked for more than that. I said, I'll do it if I can bring my girlfriend,
Oh,
who is
sweet.
Emma, who you
Love
met.
that. And who can put a price tag on love?
Who can put priceless.
Yeah,
I believe that's the term.
I think it is. And I saw it in a De Beers commercial.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
So-
Or is it? I think it's something Barclaycard. Anyway,
all of them. So what a treat. And so you and the missus, you were boyfriend, girlfriend at that point in time?
yep.
Loaded up some of your stuff and moved to New York City.
Yep.
And where did you land in New York City?
Murray Hill. Mm.
Oh, lovely.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Emma was not so happy. I was so happy. When I arrived, I got here first, and Emma joined later, and it was just magical.
Right.
Magical. We had got there in September, crisp, big sky days in New York City with a bit of wind. I mean, it was amazing.
Right. In Midtown right there and the UN right over there.
Yeah. No, it was yeah, we fell in love immediately. It didn't hurt that one of my best friends from school, who also wore the shorts and the blazer and had issues with getting beaten up.
Nothing builds a bond like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've been through a lot together. He was here. He was out here. So we had a friend group that we sort of immediately connected with, and happy days.
And so how did the documentary go down?
Well, it was a series, a history series
Oh, okay.
for PBS, and we were supposed to be there for 6 months to make it, and then we would go home, and it ran for 12 years.
Wow.
So
how did it go with the immigration and stuff?
okay,
Ice.
Who's
Ice,
listening?
if you're listening. No, but we don't have to answer any questions.
I'm happy to answer these
All right,
questions. We were here on visas that we probably shouldn't have been on, but everyone was doing it at the time. They were journalist visas. I think it was I visa. I think that's what it
It
was.
was like journalism,
Which was our case.
journalism-ish.
But every time we came back into the country, the guys at immigration would look at us like, "You sure you're doing the right thing? It doesn't feel right." So it was.
And then
it was
they'd wave
tough.
you through?
They would, but I've been into secondary more times than I care to remember.
It was secondary? That's like, oh, come to this room back here. We need to have a longer conversation.
It's a big room, and they all have them, and it's, I'm very I go in there knowing it's all going to be fine, whatever, but it's a pretty sad and sorry room with people who are clearly have been targeted for reasons they should not have been targeted.
Wait, so you're in the room with other...
Yeah, it's a big room.
Right.
And the immigration officials, and the way they do this in every single place, they are raised up. So they're about 2 feet
Oh, God.
above you on a sort of plinth, and it goes across the whole room. And so they're just surveying you, looking down on you the whole time.
To see who's like nervous and sweating.
Whatever, yeah, exactly. And they don't mess around. They don't mess around. And honestly, I'm not even sure what I kept getting called into secondary, to the point that I had an immigration lawyer. He thought I must have either a fingerprint that was like a terrorist or something. Genuinely, he couldn't quite figure out why I kept going into secondary. We'd be with the family. We'd come back from the UK. It's 2:00 in the morning, and again, not really problematic for us. We were fine. The other people who were going to be there for another 12 hours.
Ugh.
Or however long, and then into that was the whole thing. So
And you're going to be fine because you had a lawyer who'd worked it out, and you're white. And
I'm white.
You're from England,
Yeah.
or old ally.
You're right. Used to be, former ally.
Egads. Huh. Well, that brings up another question. What the hell kind of name is Tackaberry?
It's
right. I'm thinking about the immigration people. Like, oh, Tackaberry. I never heard that. Maybe.
I mean, it's Cornish.
Oh.
Allegedly.
Oh. Cornish.
I haven't done the research, but I think my dad has and others have. And the story is the Cornish Tackaberries left Cornwall, because my dad's Irish, born in Dublin or just outside Dublin. But the Cornish Tackaberries left Cornwall because of the Cornish potato famine, and arrived in Ireland just in time for the
Just in time for that one.
Yeah.
Or did they bring it with?
Did they? That's a good question.
And so after like all that, bringing it to Cornwall and then to Ireland, had to flee to the U.S.
Via London and
Right.
Bristol.
Right.
But yes.
Huh. So, and now what? Can I ask again? I mean, have you become a citizen?
I'm a green card holder,
Okay.
which
So
used to make me feel
used
comfortable.
you used to have the protection of the United States of America
Yeah.
behind you, and now it's the potential persecution
Yeah.
of the United States. So I'm going to guess, like lots of people in media here in the U.S., that you're a liberal Democrat
Yeah.
because that's sort of how media goes here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess no, thank you. So he let the record show for the radio listeners at home that Tony Tackaberry's pouring more margarita into his glass. He brought some for us to enjoy, made by his fabulous wife Emma, who was on this show like maybe a year ago.
Brilliantly.
And
It
they're
was
delicious.
more recently than that.
Emma, if you're listening, thank you so much. They're really good. So my question is this: are you a little bit afraid
Yeah.
of the current state of
I mean,
affairs?
Jesus, again, I am so fine by comparison to people who are being taken off the street, not to get political, but, you know, what is happening in this country is
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. And so I have none of those concerns, and therefore I'm fundamentally 100% fine, and I really shouldn't even be talking about concerns. I think nonetheless, I mean, you're getting me started, but yeah, I've heard, I'm listening to immigration lawyers on the radio talk about they're not telling their green card clients don't leave, like go away permanently, but don't travel, because when you come back in, it was put really interestingly, the government has more power at the border than at any other moment in sort of government workings other than battle, wartime. They have such freedom to do what the hell they want.
Right.
And so and you hear stories about people who's somehow been not targeted, but just something about them strikes concern. There's a red flag. They're pulled in to secondary. They take their phone. They see negative comments about whatever.
Yeah.
Trump, you know, who knows? Benign First Amendment stuff.
Right.
You think, and there are issues. It's not happening a lot, again, particularly with people like us, and so we are so much better off than others.
Right. So as a left-leaning individual in the media business, you probably been involved, probably shared opinions about lots of the things that your new government's done. Do you find yourself doing that less now? Out of that fair?
No.
That's good. Hats off to you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. No. I mean, but also I'm not with social media, so
Right.
it's easy for me because I am a little bit in an echo chamber, and so it's fine for
Right.
me to do that. But no, I mean, yeah, I have no compunction with expressing my opinion in any context.
That's good. Yeah, I find the whole thing a little bit chilling.
Super chilling.
Yeah. All right. So you did this History Channel thing.
PBS.
PBS History thing.
Big difference.
Sorry, the margaritas are hitting me really fast. And that lasted 10 years. Where'd you go from there?
I ended up running Lion, the company that I had been at in the UK, Lion US. So I ran the production company here in New York, and we made many hours of television for all sorts of different networks.
And what were some of the standout productions?
The one that people always talk about is a show, a little but very successful game show called Cash Cab.
Right.
Do you know the show?
Sure. Won a bunch of Emmys and stuff.
It did.
For the best game show of the year kind of Emmy.
It did. It
And
beat Jeopardy 3 years in a row.
Well, that's just blasphemy.
I know.
I mean,
Alex Trebek was very nice about it.
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
He was great.
He's
not like that Ken Jennings jerk. Well, congratulations for that.
Thanks.
So how did that come into your life, Cash Cab? Had the show existed prior to coming
so
to...
Lion in the UK made it
Okay.
originally. And they made a version of it that wasn't great. I think everyone agrees. And it didn't last. But the format then existed and it was owned by Lion. And so we tried to sell it out here. I tried to sell it out here in the States. Sold it, oddly, to the Discovery Channel in the first instance.
Right.
They'd never done a game show, but, the questions were somewhat tricky. And so they felt somehow it fit their sort of knowledge in enhancing.
So they bought it. Did that money fund the production of the U.S. or
Yeah.
did you?
So we owned the format. They basically paid us to make the show.
Discovery Channel.
Yeah, and Discovery Channel. Right. And if this is getting in the weeds of media stuff, the important thing is normally in the U.S. if a network buys a show, they own it worldwide. They own the rights to that show, whether it's a format or anything else. There are some exceptions, but generally speaking, that happens. If it's a pre-existing format, they can't do that. We were able to retain ownership whilst they paid us to make the US versions.
So what constitutes pre-existing format?
It existed in another territory beforehand.
So if you created a new game show here in the U.S., say, and took it to Lion or Fremantle Media or whoever, or ABC, and wanted to make it, they would buy all the rights. You wouldn't have the right to, say, sell it in London or...
Well, yes, except the examples you gave are not US buyers. But if it was a US network, Discovery Channel, Game Show Network, Netflix, Netflix Global, so things have changed a little bit. But yes, if I try and sell anything in the US, the network owns it 100%.
I see. How pre-existing does it have to be? Like one.
Do you have a show?
I do. That's what I'm asking. I'm like, oh, look, I've got a free consultation with an expert. But like one episode or a whole season, how pre-existing does it have to be in order to?
You're really looking at me.
Oh yeah, no, this is absolutely personal stuff.
It's a good question. If you have an existing episode shot, that's pretty good.
Okay.
That's pretty strong, because you're then not asking the network to pay to develop it with you, for example. So they're not putting in that early risky money.
Right.
You've done that,
Gotcha.
and you can go and say, look, here it is. It exists. Buy it, take it or leave it. So that puts you in a strong position.
Right.
Doesn't.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And are you still at Lion?
No. For good or ill, I left 2021, just to set up on my own. I've been there for 20 years, had the best time, awesome, no bad things to say. And I just, pick one. I'm bleeding.
And
sorry.
It happens to most of the guests here. Yeah. It's tough. It's my hardball interview style.
Yeah, it is. Jeez, no. I set up my own production company, Station 6 Productions, in 2022. Unfortunately, it coincided with the cratering of the US content business, so it's been tough. But I'm still alive. Do you have a paper?
And why has the US content business cratered?
How long have you got?
Yeah, 10 seconds or less, please.
Too much content. Not enough eyeballs.
Oh, really? I would not guess. The first part I would guess, but not the second part. It seems now more people than ever before watching and talking about stuff they see on TV or in the streaming services or wherever.
Right. But think of it. I will give you one statistic that I read the other day that I think helps sort of understand the full picture, which, not to say that you don't have the full picture. But,
I don't.
But I read somewhere about a year or so ago that let me put it in a question. How long do you think it would take you to watch all the content that is available on demand on streaming services, all the various streaming platforms?
On those platforms, like today?
Let's say today, in a moment of time.
How long would it take me to watch all that?
Everything.
17 years.
330 odd years.
boy.
Yeah, I can't vouch for the
I thought I was
survey.
giving an unfeasibly large guess.
Exactly. And now a lot of it is licensed content. It's old content.
Right.
But so that's the core problem. There's a few specific things, and one of the specific issues is Netflix came at. I'll try and keep this brief, and just stop me if this is boring. Netflix sort of arrived on the scene, I don't know, 2012, 2013. It grew and grew and grew, and by the late 20 teens, it was clearly dominant. So all the other media groups said, we need this. We need our streaming platform. And they invested billions and billions and billions. And then in just almost the same month that I sort of began my existence as a production company, Netflix lost subscribers 2 quarters in a row, freaked Wall Street out. They realized that multiple Netflixes at billions and billions and billions of dollars in terms of cost were not sustainable. If Netflix isn't continuing to grow, then how are these other things like Paramount Plus and Discovery Plus and blah, blah, blah? I mean, it's too much. It's too much. And so all of these groups, Discovery, Paramount, Peacock, the NBC, Comcast group, all of them had invested billions and suddenly were caught short. Shit, this isn't probably going to work. And that meant everything shrank from there on.
Right.
Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, that was perfect. Thanks for explaining it to me. I think I understood that. And so, is there a light at the end of that tunnel?
A little, yeah. There's also, as a consequence of that, there's a lot of consolidation going on. That's not good. Tens of thousands of people have lost their jobs. Companies are closing. I actually think it does feel like things are opening up now.
In terms of places being open to new content,
to buying new stuff, yeah.
Right. But doesn't the viewing public sort of clamor for new entertainment, new shows? Like I'm thinking of Adolescence now, which you've probably seen.
I've seen it, yeah.
Like that hit all of a sudden. I don't watch anything. I'm like, all right, I got to watch that.
Yeah.
And doesn't that dynamic create a lot of demand for new programming?
It does. I'm going to make a little distinction between scripted and non-scripted.
Okay.
But even in the scripted world, yeah, you're right. But for every one Adolescence, there's 10 shows that, not you because you don't watch, but me, who does watch, is not watching.
Right.
Scripted shows. Because they're not great. They're mediocre. They're okay. And I think that's the problem. And what you're actually finding is, certainly at Netflix, what they've decided to do, rather than just spend and spend and spend and deliver some phenomenal shows at the top end and a huge number of mid shows, as my son would say. And people aren't really watching those shows. It's, yes, the top end content, but there's this middle band that just is costing billions but not getting the traction and the numbers, and so everyone has sort of shrunk.
But
and go ahead.
I was going to ask, middle band defined by eyeballs on the show, right? I mean, it's like I wouldn't have bet on Adolescence being the hit that it is. If I'd seen that, it'd be like, oh, that's nice. I mean, it's one take, that's cute, whatever. I don't care. I would not have bet on that. You've seen it. Would you have bet that it would have become?
Partly because of the people involved.
Okay.
Stephen Graham, Jack Thorne's the writer. Stephen Graham, legend. Yeah. The fact that they took on that subject matter and decided to do it one take seemed a little unnecessary to me. Choose one really difficult thing to do.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, who knows? No one knows what's going to hit. So no, I wouldn't have picked it. But those instances are few and far between.
Right.
Like, yeah.
So what are you working on now?
I'm working on a bunch of stuff. I'm surviving. I think that's the thing I'm happiest about. The company still existing. We just wrapped a show that I've made I have Canadian partners, and we just wrapped, excuse me, my first paranormal show,
Oh, cool.
which I'm very excited about.
Wow.
And then I've got 2 true crime shows, one of which is very close to happening. I have a history show that I'm really excited about.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So true crime, this has been your thing for a long time, true crime.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
It sold.
It's sold.
I mean, just simply, I was at Lion. We were trying to find a way to sell more shows, and true crime was huge.
And do you have statistics about shit like that? Like you said, you're doing a paranormal show, and I thought, oh, but that's popular. Do you have research that's like, oh, paranormal shows are very popular, and true crime is great?
I don't, but enough people do, and I talk to enough people in the business to know that true crime and paranormal are 2 of the most dedicated audiences you will find in the world, honestly.
Right.
And certainly in America. Paranormal, they want it.
And so the partners in Canada, do they help fund this?
Yeah.
So the money people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which I imagine is a big part of your job, is raising the money, either by sort of pre-selling it to, ABC or whoever, or Netflix, and then get the money to make it. How do you enjoy that part of your job? Raising the money.
I've enjoyed it more and more. I was a producer. That was where I started, and so it was new to me 20 years ago.
Right.
I do it more and more. I kind of enjoy it because you also have to pair that with the creative. You have to find the creative that's going to get the attention, and so that process I really enjoy. It's tough. It's so tough just trying to sell anything.
I would guess it was near impossible right now in this economic environment.
Literally almost impossible. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's been brutal, but I'm sad in that I'm comforted by other people's misery, I guess, in that I know we're all going through the same thing, and it's not just me being bad.
This time.
You've
grown out of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, have I?
I'm not sure. So when you make these shows, you sort of have an idea of their destination?
Yeah.
Who's going to buy them and air them?
Yeah. I feel like this is in the back of your mind. You have your show.
I did. I've moved on.
I know. I'm kidding.
I've moved on, but also note to self, ask you that for a drink later.
Yeah. You're welcome to ply me with alcohol.
But you do. I mean, I guess that makes sense that you would sort of handicap them. Oh, this will go to History Channel or Bravo.
They all have these really ridiculous brands and niche ways in which they define themselves and their shows, and it's kind of silly, and it's also anti-creative. Please God, don't let any buyers be listening to this, but it just goes against sort of proper creativity, and I think that's the other thing that's happening at the moment. Risk has gone out the window. I think that's one of the things that makes adolescence special, is it's risky. It's a big risk, and there's less and less of that kind of thing.
Right. But there's lots of stuff.
I get the impression you didn't like adolescence.
No, I did. I liked it.
Okay.
But, in terms of risk, I think there's lots of shit out there that takes lots of risks and breaks lots of new ground, but then it doesn't get that kind of popularity, and is adolescence dead. And it's like, oh, whatever.
But I think that goes back to 330 years of content that's out there. It gets lost. I guarantee you there is content on all of the major platforms, and I spend time looking. But there's stuff there that I would love, and I don't know about it.
How many hours in an average week are you looking?
Looking versus watching?
Oh.
That's a big deal.
Okay.
It's a big
Expand,
issue.
Please.
The time spent... so they all have these algorithms that are intended to present you with shows that they know you'll like because of your previous watching habits. I think it is no secret in the industry that those algorithms are pretty terrible. They certainly do not show me the kind of... And part of that is, the fickle nature of humans. We zig when we maybe should zag, whatever.
Yeah, we live with all these contradictions
We do.
inside ourselves all the time.
Precisely. But the process of trying to find content on all of these platforms is a problem. It takes too long. It's very often not intuitive. And you multiply that across all the platforms in one day, that's an hour of searching.
Right.
For many people in one day. Just looking. You haven't watched anything.
Or there must be a number somewhere. What percentage of people, and I'm thinking of couples, just give up? They're searching all through the titles.
If my household is anything to go by, that number is high.
Like 20% of the time?
Oh, for sure.
It ends in failure.
Yeah. Oh, I would say
Like
higher.
30?
Because then we start
40?
arguing and
I made a deal with my girlfriend, and I haven't done a lot of things in my life that I'm like, that was really smart. And they turn out to have been really smart. Because I was not a TV watcher. When my kids left the house,
Thanks.
I just stopped. But she likes to watch stuff. I said, I will watch anything you want.
yeah.
No, I will not say no to anything you want to watch, but I will reserve the right to mock it mercilessly.
Yeah, fair.
And it's great.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's all.
Yeah, sort of exercise the snark muscles for crappy things.
No, so it's Emma and I, and then we have a 17-year-old son and we love watching things together. We love it.
Yeah.
It is my happy place. Getting to that place, boy, it's brutal.
So how many hours a week do you spend watching versus looking at?
Watching, I don't know, it varies because I do a fair amount of watching during the day for my job.
Right.
That was air quotes.
Yeah. But it's, I mean, you take it very seriously.
I do. I have to.
It really is
Yeah,
your
yeah.
job.
No, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours a day, which is not that high, honestly. I won't necessarily finish everything. Minimum 3 or 4 hours a day. Actually, no, that's about right.
Is there a minimum number of minutes that you force yourself to watch something, even if you're hating it?
Yeah. You have to get 10 minutes in, I'd say,
Right.
but that's fine.
And so you are aware of that when you're putting together your programs?
100%.
100%. You're front loading it with interesting content.
Grab people by the nose,
Right.
and you pull them through, and do not let them look away.
Right. I've seen more and more shows edited where you see, the last scene, and you're like, oh, how did they get there?
Yeah.
Where they start with like the resolve, and then you're hooked. Like, oh, I got to see how they got there.
I mean, yeah, and that you can do that kind of stuff to a fault for sure.
Sure.
But what I try to do, whether I succeed is a whole other question, is draw them, do what I just said, grab them by the nose, but just by letting things unfold in that sort of suspenseful way that
Right.
people like to keep watching.
Right. Well, guess what?
We're
Holy
done.
shit. Yeah. We've exhausted an hour of chit chat. I wish we had more time.
Well, I hope it was vaguely interesting.
So much fun. Tony Tackaberry, thank you so much for being here. Anybody who's listening, thanks for listening. Everybody have a great Friday and a fabulous weekend. Thanks to the producer extraordinaire, Jen Hammoud, for making this show happen tonight. Matt Rosenberg for starting the station, and the Epicurean for hosting. Have a great weekend.